Hi guys, for today's look I did a raspberry and blue inspired look. Super pretty. I really like how it turned out, and I always think that raspberry and blue are super pretty together. And honestly, I really like how it turned out. It's really unique and interesting, and I don't really see many of these color combinations on people much. If you'd like to see how I did this look, just stay tuned on watching. First, I'm going to take my Too Faced Shadow Insurance. I'm just going to apply this all over the eyelid, up to the eyebrow bone, and kind of in the inner corner, and then kind of bring it underneath on the lash line as well. You can use any eyeshadow primer, but this one's honestly my favorite. I've been using it for years, and I really do see a difference when I use it. Next, I'm going to go in with a mix of glucose and sugarcane from the Jeffree Star Cosmetics Blood Sugar Palette on a Carity E31 blending brush. The reason why I didn't go in with just glucose itself is because I didn't want something super stark white down, and I kind of wanted something a little bit more on the tan side as well, so I kind of just mixed the two. It's kind of a good trick if you have just like one palette that you're trying to use, or if you don't have a huge collection. You can always just dip your brush into 2 or 3 different colors and make your own color. Next, with the same Jeffree Star Cosmetics Blood Sugar Palette, I'm going to go into Tongue Pop right here. I'm going to just keep on using that same Carity E31 blending brush. Next, with the same palette, I'm going to go into the shade called Cherry Soda on a Shayna B eye crease brush. And it's this kind of like a true red shade right here. With this shade, I'm really starting to focus it into the crease and really kind of start bringing in more definition. And I'm also kind of rounding out this outer V as well. I honestly really like this Blood Sugar palette. I think it's really amazing. The shadows are super easy to blend out and really easy to work with. And it's really underrated for what I can see. I don't see many people use it. But I really like the shadow quality. The only downside to this palette is there's a lot of kickback with the shadows. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. Which just means that they're like formulated to blend better, and they're a lot more pigmented. They remind me a lot of like Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadows in the Modern Renaissance palette, because those are very powdery too. But that just means that they're going to be easier to blend with and work with. But if you're not into a lot of fallout or a lot of kickback, you might not like this palette. But if you really like reds and purple shadows, you'll absolutely love it. I highly recommend it. Even if you don't like powdery eyeshadows, you will love this one if you're into reds. Next, I'm just going to soften my edges with that glucose and sugarcane mixture that we used before to set the primer. I'm just doing that again with the Carity E31 blending brush. I'm just kind of buffing the edge very, very lightly just to kind of give it that gradient effect. Also, when you're doing this, sometimes it's easier to buff off that lower lash line and kind of create that wing a little bit and get it faded out. Next, I'm just going to go back in with that Cherry Soda shade again, just to kind of add more color. Because sometimes when you blend out the edges, sometimes the brush kind of moves things around and kind of makes things less pigmented, just because you're blending it out. So if you want to add more color, just go back in with more. Next, I'm going to go into Love Plus from Sugarpill on my Sigma E35. And with this, I'm really just focusing it into the crease and really bringing in more definition. And again, I'm going to really round out these edges in this outer V, just to really soften it, which will help later when we are trying to blend everything together. I'll be honest, Sugarpill eyeshadows are absolutely amazing, and Love Plus is my absolute favorite red I have ever used, ever owned anything. It is so pigmented, and just like any other Sugarpill eyeshadow, they're very underrated because their pigmentation is insane. There's barely any fallout, if any at all. And honestly, they're just amazing. I honestly can't explain how great they are without having to show you how amazing they are when using them. But man, they are just pigmented as F. Another thing I really like about Sugarpill eyeshadows is that they're all pretty primary and true to color, so they're really easy to work with all together, because this is primary yellow and primary red right here. So that makes it really easy to work with other colors and whatnot, and to make your own colors when you're blending them, or if you want to like scrape them and make your own shade. Since I went a little ham with that Love Plus shade, I'm just gonna lightly buff my edges again. I feel like with a lot of like these brighter eyeshadows, and like reds and whatnot, you really need to keep on blending them out. Otherwise they're gonna get really overpowering really quick. So I've always just liked to keep on going back and forth between adding more color, adding more definition, and then keep on blending it back out, adding more color and definition until I get where I want. I'm just gonna go back in and add just a little bit more Love Plus to bring in more definition. Next I'm gonna go into Zora out of the Juvias Place, the Saharan 2 palette, and I'm just gonna keep on using that Sigma E35 blending brush. When applying this shade, I'm gonna really focus this into the crease and really start bringing a lot more definition. In the pan, this shade looks super dark, but it really isn't. It's more of like a medium pink, a medium red, kind of with a burgundy undertone to it. The only bad thing about using eyeshadows like this is I'm gonna stain so bad tomorrow at work, so I'm gonna have like really bright red eyes. But it's totally worth it in my opinion, because red is such a pretty color to wear. Since I'm so fair-skinned, I stain really easy with eyeshadow. Even that blue look I did recently, I was so stained for like probably 2 days, just because my skin is so fair that it really gets stained easy, unfortunately. But if you're not as fair as me, it might not stain as bad. I'm going to do things a little bit different than I normally would, but I'm going to go into Cougar from the Clarity Smoky palette on the Sigma E35 blending brush. When you dip into the pan of this eyeshadow, make sure that you use very little, because the eyeshadow is extremely pigmented and it can really overpower a look because it's that pigmented of a black. So you just want to make sure that you have barely any on your brush, because we can always add more, it's just really hard to take away. And I'm just going to apply this in this outer V. Really kind of like smoke it into the crease. You could also use a dark brown for this, but I honestly prefer a black. And I just like the undertone better of using black, but if you have a dark brown, it'll work just the same. In theory, if it's a chocolate brown at least. If it's like a lighter brown, it won't do this. Why I'm adding the black is because I honestly don't own a super dark red or a super dark purple that would go really well with this. So to counteract that, I'm going to use black to get the color that I want. And then afterwards, I'm going to blend it out back with red to make it more of a deep red. And then I'm going to add in my purple later. This is honestly just me being very picky with my eyeshadow and making sure I get the color that I'm looking for. But if you have anything that you really enjoy, you can use that too. I just prefer to do things a little bit different, and this is just how I do my eyeshadow, and if you do things different, that's totally okay too. I just want to show you guys the way I do mine. Next, I'm going to go back in with that Juvia's Place Zoya shade and really start blending this on top of that black shade. This might look a little rough right now, and that's okay. It's just, it'll come through together once we get everything laid down. Next, I'm going to go back in with a little bit of Love Plus just to add more of that vibrancy back in. With this look, I definitely recommend doing your foundation last, as you can see with all the fallout I have on my cheeks. A lot of that is just because I don't tap off my brush, because I'm lazy and I know I'm going to do my foundation last anyways. But if you are somebody that does your foundation first, you might want to tap off your brush or highly consider doing your face last. And again, I'm just going to lightly blend out the edge. This time I'm using a different brush. I'm using the Shayna B blending brush. I'm just using the same colors of glucose and sugarcane, and really just lightly buffing the edge. Off camera, I just used a makeup wipe just to take and get rid of all that fallout I had on my cheeks and on my nose and whatnot. It was kind of distracting, and I didn't want too much pink on my cheeks once I put foundation on, so I just thought it'd be easier to take care of it right now. Next, I'm going to cut the crease using my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer in the shade Fair. Here's where I'm at after cutting the crease with the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. If you would like a more in-depth tutorial, I did it super in-depth with my pink sunset look. It was my first video that I uploaded recently. I will link it down below for you as well if you're interested. But in that one, I go like really in-depth about like what concealer to use, what kind of brush, how much product, stuff like that. Next, I'm going to go back in with that Sigma E35 blending brush and just use whatever's left on the brush and really kind of buff out that concealer line that I have in this outer V. I just really want to smoke it out because I don't want it too harsh once we start adding the other colors in. And if it doesn't look perfect, that's okay too. We just kind of want to get the general base color down. So if it's a little patchy, don't worry about it. Next I'm going to take this shade called Deep from Luxie Beauty. It is kind of a true blue shimmer. It's really pretty. It's really gorgeous. I really like this one. With a dampened brush, I'm going to take a flat shader brush from BH Cosmetics. And I'm just going to start applying this to the lid. For shades going on top of a cut crease, I really like brushes like this. They're a flat shader brush, but they kind of have like this curve to them. So it's really easy to trace this kind of cut crease line that we made. And to really get it really precise, and so it doesn't like mess up the cut crease that we already applied. Because if you do something and it's really sharp, you don't want to get rid of it by applying an eyeshadow over it. So it's really nice to use a brush like this because it already has the curve of the crease already kind of made into it. So you're pretty much just patting and kind of running that like curve around from the brush into the crease of your eye. Using a damp brush with this really helps because then you can get it more precise, because it makes the eyeshadow like kind of glide a little bit better. It makes it more of a creamy formula almost, and it makes it so it's really easy to get it really precise next to this cut crease that what we already made. And with this, I'm going to bring it, the blue, I'm going to bring it about 2/3 into my eye, so about at the end of my eye color right here. Because I'm going to apply purple right here, and I don't want it where the purple isn't visible. Next, I'm going to go into this Eve shade right here out of the Juvias Place the Magic palette, and I'm going to go in with a Shayna B shadow brush. I'm probably pronouncing the name incorrectly, and I'm sorry about that. With this shade, I'm really going to pack it into this outer V right here and kind of bring it in. So I'm really focusing it right in here. And when I get to over the blue, I'm just really tapping it in to blend it in and kind of doing like a wiggle motion over the line. And if you lose some of the blue pigment, don't worry about it. We'll go back in with the blue anyways. Next, after we get that purple down, we're just going to go back in with the blue and just add more color. Next, I'm going to go into the shade called Dreamboat from Luxie Beauty. It's kind of a pale blue shimmer shade. Using the same brush as we did with the bright blue, I'm just going to lightly dust this on top of the bright blue to really kind of make it a little bit more sparkly and a little bit more light. Because I kind of feel like the blue right now is a little too deep. So I'm just kind of putting Dreamboat on just to lighten it up a little bit. And it really has a really pretty glitter to it as well. Or I should say shimmer, not glitter. But it's super pretty. I really like it. And it kind of adds just a little bit more dimension as well. So here's where I'm at right now with the eyes. Super pretty. I really like how they're turning out. And then off camera, I'm just going to finish up the rest of my face and kind of get rid of all the fallout and whatnot. Next, I'm going to go into the Anastasia Beverly Hills Moonchild Glow Kit, and then I'm going to go in with an Eco Tools smudger brush into Blue Ice. With this shade, I'm really going to bring it in far as well. I'm going to bring it in probably the first third underneath my lower lash line. And you really want it really stark too, so I would recommend wetting your brush. I'm also going to take this Blue Ice shade on a Wet n Wild crease brush, just lightly. And I'm going to use this just kind of as a little bit of a highlighter. So here's the finished look. It is a kind of reddish blue, kind of purple look. I really like how this one turned out. I think it's really interesting and kind of unique. Definitely one of my favorites I've ever done, honestly, because I really like red eyeshadow with blue eyeshadow. I think it's super pretty. Let me know down below what you guys would like to see next. I would like to hear your suggestions. I would really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. And if you would like to follow me on other social media websites, my Instagram account is @lethal_kitten and my Twitter account is @lethalskittens. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!